Welcome to SwitchCorner, my name is Alex and today we're taking a look at Hazel Sky on the Nintendo Switch. Now this one, I've been psyched for it since the first trailer. It gave me adventure vibes in the style of Uncharted, but can it live up to my grand expectations? Well, hit subscribe, join us here on SwitchCorner for reviews and deals near daily, and let's get started. Here then we take on the role of Shane, a young engineering student that resides with his father in the flying city of Gideon. He wants to become a fully fleshed engineer, work on this city, but to do that we must face what are called the trials, a series of challenges designed to prove our skills. Succeed, we are an engineer; fail, you essentially face banishment. Essentially though, here we get 3 trials of increasing difficulty, each centered around restoring a flying machine to carry us home and of course return certified. That is the core narrative here, and it's then reinforced with collectibles that add context, such as this world's distaste for creativity in the arts, and we'll even meet a young girl named Erin via radio, and she will often attempt to challenge beliefs and almost at the same time confirm progress. The story has a good idea, but it fails to deliver. It falls flat, it's just low quality writing. I had no reason to invest in the characters. Their personal challenges lacked weight and tension. It was non-existent. The idea then of a love interest between these two characters as well, that was not believable at all. Even the intrigue, it's just not here outside of the first maybe 30 seconds or so. Opening the game then, we are in a boat with our father. He will drop us at the first of 3 mysterious locations to face off against these trials. The background view of Gideon gives you an end goal in sight, and our father details how we overcome these trials. Basically, we need to find a blueprint and then complete the required steps. Mainly think replace missing parts or repair broken ones. Our first location is a small lighthouse of sorts with 4 floors, self-contained location with a plane on the roof. Challenge number 1 though is find the blueprint, find a stapler, find metal, wood and cloth, bring them to the plane and then you will progress. It's extremely simplistic, and that is good because the controls are simple but also what I describe as incredibly clunky at times. This is particularly true with the camera, which is often the case with third person in confined spaces such as this one. For controls though, you can pick up items both for use and to investigate. No inventory here though, you will carry them, like think the metal sheets that you need for the plane. It definitely slows down the pace. You can swim later into the game for a few brief moments. We can jump, and then of course we can climb. The climbing has little fluidity to it though, so do not come here looking for a feeling similar to Uncharted or Assassin's Creed. It's also extremely limited in where you can use it, and that becomes particularly apparent from location 2 and 3. It just, if anything, feels sluggish. The grabbing temperamental, climbing slow, and even carrying items, as I said, that slows your speed down from what was already slow to begin with. You can sprint, yes, with the press of the left stick too, but I often found it unresponsive. From what I could tell, though, there's no stamina system at all, so it's simply not kicking in some locations. Around the world then as well, expect to find collectibles, so think notes to add context, but also then things like the guitar from the trailer. You can play this guitar as well, it was featured in the trailer, but even with on-screen prompts I still couldn't quite figure it out, honestly. The game somewhat also lacks almost tutorials at moments to tell you exactly what to do. So this first location, I could have wrapped it up in maybe less than 10 minutes, but I couldn't figure out how to jump across to the cloth. I kept falling to my death. It turns out there's pipes to shimmy across, but the camera angle doesn't really reveal that. World design here, it kind of starts to show early, could definitely do with some fine tuning. From here then though, we complete the repairs, we take off the plane, we can control height, even crash, learn that the hard way. We can even steer to a certain extent, but there's really no need to. They are almost simply think interactive load screens. The title, although that pops up in the horizon, and I'm like, okay, here we go, the real gameplay begins. What precedes though is 2 more slightly bigger islands and a few more interactable environmental objects. Think the aforementioned swimming moments, there's a train, even some cranes. The second island is 3 items to fix the air balloon again. The third, it now has a huge 5 missing items. We also do get a radio on island 2, which introduces us to our love interest and almost rebel, that is Erin. She talks constantly though, and when she does, you can walk but you can't do much else. All she achieves is slowing you down in reaching at the end goal. At least the positive I will say here though is the bigger locations. It means more collectibles and some secret locations as well. Now, granted, didn't really care about the story, so couldn't care less about collectibles, but at least there is some extra gameplay in here. What the bigger locations really do though is exaggerate the issues. The camera in an open world still feels sluggish, as do the controls. The climbing gives you little freedom in where you can use it. The game's hunt the missing object for the flying machine. It literally tells you every step to take. At one point you need to upgrade your stapler, and in the text on the blueprint it literally says you need to go down the well to do this. There's literally just like zero mystery. Sure, look, to be fair as well, this somewhat plays into the narrative and the relationship you have with those putting the trails in place, but I still wanted some challenge. Rather, I almost felt here like I was painting by numbers. When I finally reached Island 3 in around, I'd say, an hour of gameplay, I was determined this cannot be the end game. It's all a facade. We're going to head to Gideon, and that's where it truly begins. And I'll tell you up front here, I was completely wrong. I hit the end game and the credits rolled in less than 2 hours. There's a few minor moments in the sky, shall we say, but that's all there is to it. The game is $25 or your regional equivalent. It lacks polish. The controls, they often struggle. There's little to no mystery. The narrative is weak, and now I've done it once, I'm pretty sure I could do this in maybe less than an hour, even with Erin constantly chatting away, slowing me down. I want to say here as well, I have no problem with short games costing me this much, honestly. I'm a big fan of narrative experiences, so that is often the case, but they need to be polished. They need to have a powerful narrative, and they need to almost move fast. This one, it just lacks in all those areas. Play something like Firewatch, for example, you'll see exactly what I mean. It has issues still, but the intrigue in the world is absolutely stunning. Also, if you are here because you saw the trailer like me and that caught your attention, you may remember moments in the snow climbing, frozen cliffs, or swimming in a lab-like location. It gave this sense of a grand adventure. Unfortunately, these are nothing more than short, bite-sized linear locations to add some context between each island. They last no more than 5 minutes each, and that's what I would thought would have been the open world themselves. It actually turns out you can walk the entire third island, the biggest one, in about 5 minutes. It's tiny and it looks exactly the same as the first 2. In regards to endgame content, then there's a gallery of unlockables. No built-in achievements, unfortunately. Would have really benefited from the latter given its kind of collectathon nature, but I did at least head to the Xbox page to see what was going on, and it actually seems there is at least a secret ending in here to uncover as well. Overall, I'm so disappointed. The trailer was great, so kudos there, but it's really lacking this one in tension, mechanics, variety, and just a general sense of intrigue. Then the ending is underwhelming, and it's really over before you truly feel like it's began. Graphically, I'm almost honestly getting Control and I vibes here. There's something about the character design in here that just feels off. There's only really 2 characters, so I feel like there could have been a little more effort. Somewhat kind of plastic looking, almost kind of creepy. The 3 islands, they are all tropical. That makes sense given how close they are packed together, and they do at least add some variety in here with different buildings and machine types. The highlight visually for me, the flying, even if it is mostly, sit back and watch, and then also the water effects. They are seriously at points impressive. Identifying objects though can be extremely difficult, as a white dot highlights what you can interact with, but this is so small on screen, and that's particularly true for handheld. Pixelation is also apparent. This is exceptionally true when I struggle to read some signs docked. It's near impossible in handheld. Said though, it's not too big an issue as it's not really giving you any extra guidance, but it is at least adding, a little bit of backstory to the world. Texture work then is pretty weak, there's popping throughout, especially as islands do expand, but this is mainly in textures appearing, especially true when you investigate an item in hand and try to rotate it. Nearly every item you do pick up will initially start in a kind of blurred form. Audio finally, the music is solid, it's not the intriguing, almost folk design I was hoping for. Think the masterpiece soundtrack of, I'll mention it again, Firewatch, but it does enough. Same for the sound effects, for the majority you are the only character, but these locations, they are never too quiet. Voice acting on the other hand, some of the worst I've heard in a long time. The second I loaded into the game, this is what I heard to start, and I was immediately concerned with what we were getting ourselves into.
Pick up! Someone, pick up.
Even our lead's delivery is poor, the tonality often feels completely off and he repeats himself constantly, like when we pick something up. He has this unknown desire to scream, I need to do something with this. We get it, you're carrying it somewhere, so you're clearly going to do something with it. I don't necessarily think it's the actors involved, though I will put that out there. Sure, it's an indie, so a lower budget, but I actually think here the writing hasn't really given them a whole lot to work with. So the final verdict, and I am seriously disappointed. This has long been on my anticipated games list, and what I found doesn't really deliver much in any way. I've spoke to this game and my excitement now more than a few times, and perhaps I just had over expectations of what was to come. That said though, clunky controls, poor camera, limited exploration, small locations, basic collectathon mechanics, and then it's all topped off with poor writing. Then on top of all of that, it's wrapped up in a couple of hours and there's really little reason to go back outside of the secret ending. That is really about it. Some mechanics even lacked explanation, like the guitar playing from the trailer. Visuals, they're okay, the audio works, it does its job outside of the voice work, and I guess the world is at least intriguing if I'm looking for the positives, but I will say overall, this world, it definitely deserved better than this. I say that because I can't argue, honestly. Trails to become an engineer, to work in a flying city that seems too good to be true. It's got Bioshock vibes written all over it. There is definitely potential in there, it's just definitely been missed. I'm a big fan of the publisher here as well, and Neon Doctrine. They did Figure the Longest Night, Yuppie Psycho, The Legend of Tianding, but this is unfortunately absolutely a miss. I played it in one sitting though, the performance was at least fine and there were no crashes, so it does at least have that going for it. Today though, a bad 3 out of 10 from me, and if you are considering jumping in, I'd wait on a deep sale. At $25 or your regional equivalent, that is just honestly ridiculous for what we are getting. So yeah, as I said, I'm as disappointed as all of you. I hate giving low scores like this, but sometimes it has to be done. I do think a lot will be heading here though for this big grand adventure, and that could not be further from the truth of what is actually delivered. Hopefully though, they further the concept in the future and push it to its full potential, because there's a lot of good ideas in here that are either poorly implemented or either lack depth. Will you be adding this one to the library then, or holding onto that cash? A shout out then to the patrons of the channel who are going above and beyond to support SwitchCorner. It helps more than you know, so thank you all so much. Then hit subscribe, join us here on SwitchCorner for reviews and deals near daily, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.